We'll be getting started in just one moment here. Welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining us for the Rubrics session of Wayfinding Online. We're so glad that you're here. As you get snuggled into your virtual seat, in your virtual chair, if you could please type your name and the college or colleges that you're affiliated with, your email address at the college, and your role into the chat. You can feel confident knowing that that chat information is only going between you and my amazing co-host, Devin, right? So sending that information to us is really helpful. It allows us to stay in a relationship with you beyond the 55 minutes of our time together. And it also helps us to take the pulse of who's in our sessions, what roles they occupy, so that we can continue to design and evolve this series to best suit your needs. So again, if you're just joining us, thank you so much for being here. If you could please just put your name and your role at your college and the college or colleges you're affiliated with and your email address into that chat. If you're wondering where that chat box lives, just do this, sort of hover situation at the top right and the bottom right of your screen, and you should see an orange colored button that shows up, and that's where you would click into to get the chat. We hope that you're having a fantastic Wednesday, and we're so glad that you're here joining us. My name is Nicole Bryant-Lesher. I am English faculty at College of the Redwoods and a coordinator here with 3CSN, and this is my amazing colleague and co-host, Devin. Devin, did you want to take a second to introduce yourself?
Certainly, yes. Hello, everybody. Happy Wednesday. My name is Devin Werble. I work with 3CSN as a full-time coordinator here in the LACCD. I also teach English 101 and linguistics as a part-time adjunct faculty member in the Community College District. And like many of you, I had a face-to-face class that went virtual. And I also had a 101 class that was 100% virtual. So I had two experiences happening at one time. As Nick mentioned, please make sure to put your name, email, college, and role in the chat. And I will be monitoring the chat. As Nick mentioned, if you're just joining us, it is a private chat. Anything that you say in there goes directly to me. And so I will be monitoring that along the way as Nick goes through the presentation today on rubrics. So thank you so much for joining us. Nick, take it away.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thanks so much. All right, well, let's get rocking and rolling here. But only if I click on my screen so that it works. Look at that. All right. So let's start by just chatting a little bit about the objectives that drive this session and then all of the sessions that are part of this wayfinding series. We really have three central objectives. And the first and sort of most central, I would say, is to, through these sessions, create a sense of community and online environment, and in order to support student engagement and retention. Right? So if we can build our capacity as a community and support one another, then we believe that that's going to give us so much more gas in the tank to be able to come alongside and support our students during this time of change. Our second objective is to learn together in order to support our professional identities, which may feel very much in flux right now as we straddle this new environment of learning together online. And so continuing to develop our identity as community college professionals with a recognition that we might be really experiencing some new challenges right now. And then last but certainly not least, to provide all of you, our 3CSN network, with opportunities to dialogue, share, build and strengthen knowledge, and engage in productive struggle in community. And for me personally, when I think about that idea of productive struggle, what sets that aside from just good old plain struggle is that if I feel like I'm struggling, it may be a really natural response for me to just push back, right? And be like, oh, it's too much, I can't do it, right? I'm struggling. And we see this with our students too, right? If our students feel that they're beyond their threshold, their move might be to say, I can't do it. I can't do it. I'm not there yet. I'm not ready, right? Or any of the other ways in which they label that moment for themselves.
Hey, Nick,
However,
real fast.
yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you. We're seeing your Canvas, not the PowerPoint. I didn't know if you wanted the PowerPoint out.
Uh-oh, that's interesting.
Sorry.
Well, let's go on a Zoom scavenger hunt and see what's going on, shall we? Okie doke. Let me take a look here. Yep, it looks like, let's just see. It looks like I'll be a little less smooth in my moves for you today.
There you go.
I'll just have to toggle back and forth and share my screen each time. So
Okay.
Devin, be my helper. If I forget,
Will do.
and I'm like sliding right into my next move and nobody can see anything, just like, you know, crow like a bird, or yes,
Okay.
perfect. That's perfect.
All right. All right, you got it.
Now you're all hoping that that happens at least once, right? Because I'd like to see how Devin does it. All right, so struggle, productive struggle, right? Struggle makes me say, I can't do it, right? Like navigating Zoom sometimes. Productive struggle is, I can't do it, but I have the support of the community to lean in with me. And through that support and the building of knowledge, I can figure it out, right? I'm at my vanguard of skills, but I'm not doing it alone. I have others to rely upon. And that gives me what I need to step into that environment of newness and to respond, right? And so 3CSN believes in this deeply. It's part of our theory of change. And it argues that if we provide training on networking and we use action research methodologies, community college professionals will transform their environments and identities to create communities of practice that will produce powerful learning and work across campuses. And this is ultimately going to lead to greater success. So if we can productively struggle together and learn through that experience, we have a better ability to come and support our students who are often working through their own experiences of productive struggle in our classes on our campuses, right? Especially right now. This particular session is going to focus on Canvas rubrics. And so we're going to spend about 25 minutes of hands-on time working together. And during that time, what I would suggest that you do is to actively engage with the webinar by taking some notes. You can do this digitally, you can do this on paper. And if and when questions arise for you, please feel free to put those right into the chat. Devin's going to keep a log of what those questions are. And as we move towards the last 10 minutes of our time together, she's going to bring those questions forward so that we can tackle them at that time. We find that this rhythm works really well in these webinars because it allows me to model a process all the way through before we get into the more individualized question and answer portion. Also, what often happens is that early questions end up getting answered 3/4 of the way through, almost while we're through, because we've moved through that thought loop. So we really value those questions. We also want to make sure that we're able to get to them at the right moment. So if you could send those to Devin while you're engaging with the webinar, or keep note for yourself, and we will have that time towards the end where we can focus on those. If you have any technical difficulties, right? Something isn't working, your volume, you can't hear, etc. Make sure to definitely get those into the chat for Devin right away so that she can come alongside and help you, or it's another time where she can flap like a bird and wave her hands for me to know that something isn't working on my end. Either way. So the last place I'd like us to center before we dig into looking at Canvas in particular is to consider what our time together is going to look like in terms of some shared agreements for our learning, right? Setting this intentionally as a group helps us to make sure that we're starting from the same place. So I've got a list on the screen of some ways of being together in the online environment that have worked really successfully for us over the past weeks of these sessions. I'm going to invite you to take a look at those, take a couple minutes, and think about, is there anything here that we need to add? Is there anything missing? And for folks who might be joining us without a screen, I'm going to go ahead and read them aloud. So look at them while I read them and let me know if there's anything we need to add. We can add another bullet right here at the bottom. So some ways of learning together that have been working really well and we think are good to remind ourselves of as we get started is, again, to signal that question by using the chat function, please. For all of us to assume best intentions with large group online dialogue. Boy, it sure does feel different than when we're in a room together. And so just keeping in mind that that is going to change what the interaction feels like a little, and to give everybody a little grace as we work through it, right? On my part, I'll do my best to annotate or describe my actions for those who might have limited viewing ability or audio only options. And then some great suggestions that we've received from the field, from all of you that have informed our norms over the last few weeks are what you see for the last few here. So keep in mind that we're all learners right now. We're doing our best, right? That it's okay to ask clarifying questions. Just because I modeled it one way doesn't mean it's going to make sense or track for everyone the same way. And then an invitation for you and for me, all of us, to keep things simple for ourselves and for our students, to be kind to ourselves and to our students. And I will do my best to make sure that I recap before I move on to new concepts. If there's anything else that I need to add at this time, please let me know by signaling it in the chat to Devin. If there's any suggestions, I'll get them up here.
So far, so good. I think we're ready to roll.
Let us do that thing. Okie doke. Here we go. So before we look at how a rubric's made, let's make sure we're all on the same page in terms of language and locations within Canvas, because that can be really helpful as we're navigating this. So Canvas Gradebook is where you go as a designer to evaluate and give feedback on student work. So if you've built an assignment, right, you've built some sort of graded situation, Canvas Gradebook is where you go to take action on that assignment. And so can you see over on my left the navigation tabs right now, Devin, or do I need to? You cannot see those. Okie dokie. We will just go right there. Let me. Okay, now can you see them?
Yes.
Fantastic. All right, so if I want to go evaluate a student assignment that has been submitted, the navigation tab, this item on the left that's blue, that I'm going to go to is the one that says grades, and that's going to take me to the gradebook, okay? But if I want to build a rubric, then I'm going to do that by going to the specific assignment. So I'm not going to go to the gradebook, I'm going to go to the assignment. So that helps me determine how I'm going to move through. Let me move you back. This does require a little bit more shuffling for you all to be able to see what I'm seeing here, but we'll make it work. In terms of rubrics, Canvas allows you to create several types of graded situations. So you can make discussion forums, you can make quizzes, or you can make a type of graded situation where students either upload something to a Dropbox, like a file or a homework assignment, or they manually type into a text box. And so the reason I bring this up is to make sure that we're sharing the same language set. In Canvas language, discussions are one type of graded situation. Quizzes are a second type of graded situation. And the third type of situation where you either have a Dropbox or you have a text box, Canvas calls that an assignment. So this is important because if your day-to-day language is to say that everything that you do that gets a grade is called an assignment, just know that you and Canvas aren't sharing the same language. And that could create a moment of confusion, right? Because some types of graded situations can have a rubric and others cannot. So as an instructor course designer, you can build a rubric for an assignment. That means something where students submit to a Dropbox or write in a text box, or for a discussion where students are posting in response to something and to each other. Those two types of graded situations can have a rubric. Quizzes cannot. There's a number of things that rubrics can do, and I'm going to show you how we can do them, right? So a rubric is a way for you to be able to give feedback and to score, if you choose, an assignment. They can include feedback and points, and they can also sum up those points for you and put them into the grade book. A rubric can include feedback on different categories, but then allow you to manually add or figure out the score. It can include open space for comments and simply categorize those comments. And I think one of the best things about rubrics is that they can be copied and imported from assignments within the same class and from previous classes that you had. So if you built a rubric and you really like it, you can take it and put it on another assignment. You can also take a rubric that you like for another assignment, but you need to make some changes, import it to a new assignment, and then edit it after you've imported it. And we're going to show you how to do those things next. So let's go take a look at how you might build a rubric. Here we are in my Canvas course that's called the Sandbox, which is a special place that my district gives me. Some districts, instructors have these, some do not. It all depends, it's a local decision, but it's basically a prototyping space. So it's not a real course, but there's a lot of moves I can make in here to make it look very similar to what your live courses would look like. The benefit of us having this space to work together is that we can do all different kinds of stuff in here and not mess with any actual live students that I have, right? Their lives continue in my real courses, and we can build all sorts of things in here for demonstration purposes. If anything looks different, I'll let you know so that you're understanding that why that looks different is simply because of the limitations of a prototyping space. So I'm on my modules page, and I've put a couple things up here in our top module just so that we can practice with them. On your modules page, you might have all different kinds of modules built. As a reminder, modules are simply containers, right? They hold whatever we want to put in them. You could put files in them, you could put lecture videos in them, and you can certainly link graded activities that you want students to complete in them so that students know that part of this unit or this module includes activities that they need to do. So let's imagine that I have built this peer review activity that I want students to do. And now I'm at a place where I'm like, I don't want to just grade that by hand. I really want a rubric to help me. So how I would start that process is I would click into the assignment itself. And once you get in, I'm at this place where I can edit it and start to develop it. So I've got my title. I can come into edit. And this could be where I say, please submit your reader review draft here and offer feedback to a class colleague. Your draft submission is worth 25 points. Your feedback to a colleague is worth 35 points. I'm going to incentivize the quality of feedback that they give to someone else by making that a significant amount of points. Okay, so 35 and 25 should make 60 if my math is working correct today. So then I'm going to come down and under points, I'm going to say this is worth 60 points. I have all these other choices that I could make in terms of this assignment, you know, what group I want it to be part of, if I have multiple categories, how I want the grade to display, etc. Right? And then if I need to, I can set a due date. And I'm going to choose save. Okay? At this point, when I choose save, I come to this weird sort of middle spot that Canvas gives me. So when I first go into an assignment, before I edit it, it stops on this kind of middle page. If I want to edit it, I go to edit. But the middle page is where my rubric option lives. So this is where I'm going to come and hit the plus for the rubric. And now the squinting begins. I'm so sorry, friends. I wish I could tell you that this grid that you're going to work in gets bigger. It doesn't. So you're just going to see my forehead coming in. And know that you'll probably have a similar experience when you're working on your computer doing this. So here we go. I'm leaning in. This is the beginning of my rubric. It starts very simple. I only have one criterion. I have room to have ratings, and I have room to make points, and then I get to decide how I want to build it. All of these can be further divided or complicated. It gives me the least amount of choices first, and then I can add and build. So the most important thing I'm going to do to start is I'm going to title this rubric, because I might want to find it later, and I don't want it called some rubric, right? So I'm going to retitle this Peer Review Spring 20, so that I know which one it is. And then I'm going to come in and make changes. Everything that has a pencil, every rubric box that has a pencil can be edited. If it doesn't have a pencil, it can't be edited, right? So you can't like get rid of this category on the right for points. You can change the points, but you can't eliminate this box, right? Everything else can be edited. So the first and farthest to the left is the criteria. And that's the ways in which I am going to evaluate my students or give feedback to my students. It's the categories of this rubric, right? So if I want to edit that from what it says right now, which is criteria and description of criteria, I simply come into the pencil that's the second from the right, and I click on that. And then I can come in and change these boxes. So my typical move here is to make a description of the criteria in the short box. And then in the large box, I tend to articulate the moves that students need to make in order to earn full credit in this area, right? So the top is the description, and then the long description is guidance to the student, right? If you do this, right, this is going to go well for you. So it's like a place of coaching to help them. So if you remember back to me building my assignment, there were points for submitting a draft, and there were points for giving feedback. So my first criteria here might be submission of peer review draft. And then my description here might be something like strong submissions will be uploaded on time and meet all of the requirements outlined on the assignment sheet, including total number of sources and writing that shows audience awareness and attention to professional language and grammar, or something like that. I'm just making it up as I go, right? So here's my title, here's my long description, and then I hit update, and then that's going to change that box. So now when I look at it and when my students look at it, this is the first criteria, and then here's the requirements, right? This is the bar to aim for. Let me make one more criteria, and then we'll get into the rating section. So let's say this takes care of submission of the draft. The next criteria that I need is that they're going to review somebody else's, right? So if I want to add a criterion, I come to this plus criterion. And the first question that Canvas is going to ask me is, do you want to duplicate what you already have, or do you want a new one? And so I guess if I was asking students to like review 3 newspaper articles or something, maybe I would just duplicate it. But in this case, there's 2 different moves I want them to make. So this is a new criterion. And then it gives me this pop-out box to add another description and another long description. So here I would say completion of peer review sheet for class colleague. And then maybe down here, again, this is the move I want my students to make, right? So I could say something like, a strong peer review includes specific observations about the draft and focused, helpful suggestions for strengthening that allow the writer to make decisions rather than rewriting the assignment as the review. Most of the focus should be on the ideas rather than grammar or spelling. It's personally how I roll in my English class to make sure that that feedback that those reader reviewers are giving is really looking at the ideas that their colleagues are building on, right? So I hit that criterion, and again, now I've got two different criteria, and each of those has a description beneath of the moves that my students are going to make. Then I get to come over to this rating section in the middle, and I can expand this as far as I want, right? So if I go back to my overall assignment, I know that the submission is worth 25 points, the feedback is worth 35. If I wanted to, I'm not sure I would ever suggest this, but I could make 25 different numbers in here. I could just keep expanding these ratings. And so there's, you know, I could have 1 through 25. Realistically, I probably need 4 or 5, like a Likert scale, right? Something that's strong, something that meets, something that says please strengthen, something that says maybe not included or not yet, and we're good, right? 4 or 5 is usually a solid amount of categories for me to feel like I can get what I need done grading-wise, right? But that's going to be up to you and your decisions with what you need with your class. So my personal suggestion here is, instead of trying to get these ratings exactly what you want, saying exactly what you want, as you start working with them, I would just make the amount of boxes you need first and then go back and edit them. One limitation I think in this section that Canvas has is that it expands from the middle out. You can't remove the first box, you can't remove the last box. So when you add more than 2, it expands from the center and contracts from the center, which is really challenging to remember at 10 o'clock at night. So it's smarter to just get what you need and then go back and edit it than try and get it perfect, because sometimes you might have to start back over. So here's how I do that. I hit the plus. It immediately takes me to this sort of, what do you want to do with that middle box? And I'm like, I don't even know what I want to do with any of these boxes yet. So under the rating title, I'm literally just going to put something to remind me to go in there, some random letters. I'm going to choose update rating at the bottom, blue box. Now I have 3 spots. I think I want 4, so I'm going to choose the plus one more time. Again, it's going to bring me out into this place, and it says, do you want to make this right now? And I'm like, nope, haha, I know better than to do that, Canvas. I'm just going to put in some placeholder text, update my rating. Now I have 4 boxes. Now I can double check, is this the total amount that I want? If so, now I'll go back and edit them. Part of the reason I also suggest that you do this is, if you are going to add in points, Canvas isn't going to allow you to make one of these categories that is farther to the right worth more points than what's all the way on the left. It understands that it's going to be a descending scale. So it's also worth it to build out your boxes first, because then you can work from left to right and Canvas won't try and override your math. So for all of those reasons, build your placeholders and then go back and edit. So this portion is out of 25. I'm going to choose this little pencil up here. If this is my farthest to the left, this is my highest score, I'm going to make this 25. I can change my rating title. And let's say here, I'm going to put in, this is super strong. Okay. Only if I spell strong right. There we go. And then this is another great place where I can coach my students through, right? And give more detail in this rating description of a strong draft submission includes, right? And I could walk through all the details so that students understand, oh, if I want to get this score, here's the moves I need to make. And then once I update, that's going to show the total amount of new points, the category title, and then the details. So then I can come to this pencil. Let's say maybe this one is 20. And my rating title here is meets, right? It's just fine. It's an 80% meets, right? Okay, and then this is where I could put in more details for that rating description if I wanted to. I can come to my third one here. Let's say I put this at 15 and I say strengthen. Whoa, that's in caps lock. Not that loudly, please, texting. We'll put in strengthen in lowercase. That's nicer. And then again, if I want to give feedback, here's what makes a draft into this category of strengthen and suggestions potentially for how to move it up into meets or move it up into super strong. And then maybe my last category, I leave it at 0 and I say no draft submitted. So in this case, maybe a student came in and they reader reviewed somebody else's, but they didn't put one in themselves. Okay. So now I have my categories. Here on completion of a peer review, I could use these same 4, right? 25, 20, or I'd change the numbers because it's out of 35, but I could have 4, but I don't have to. I can vary the amount of scoring categories by the criteria if I want to. So in this case, let's say I only want 3. Again, I'm going to use my best brain idea, which is don't try and make any decisions till you see how many boxes you have. So I'm just going to make my placeholder here by typing something in the rating title, choose update rating with the blue box on the right. Now I have 3 spots. Then I'm going to come back to my farthest left, choose the pencil. This is going to be 35 points, and it's going to be super strong. Again, under the rating description is where I could talk about what makes really strong peer review feedback to a class colleague and leave some coaching notes in there for my students. Update my rating. Maybe my middle choice here, if it's out of 35 points, let's say maybe this is 20 points and this rating title is meets. And then again, I would give some description of what meets the requirements and potentially where they could strengthen the next time that they do this assignment. And then maybe my last category here is 0, which is no reader review completed. Okay. So I've got my categories, I've got my criteria. Before I go down into any of these checkboxes beneath, Canvas lets me know what my total points are based on what I've included here. And that's always a great moment to double check your total points against what you said it was worth out of the assignment. If you don't, and it's not even, Canvas will tell you that before you're done with the rubric, and it will default to what the rubric is out of, not what you said out of the assignment. So just know that. If you say the assignment's out of 100 points, but you build a rubric that's only out of 85, you'll get an assignment that's out of 85 points. So it's good to double check it and make sure that your numbers, add up. If you don't, if they don't add up, you can always come back in with your pencils and change your total points. Then you get all these different choices down here at the bottom. If you want the criteria and you want the ratings, but you don't want the points, you can do that by clicking the box that says remove points from the rubric. Then what your student will see is the criteria and however they fared on that criteria, but then you'll put in whatever score you want to put in. Okay, it won't auto score. If you're like, oh no, I just did all that work on the points. Shoot, do I have to go back and do it? Nope, if you uncheck this box, the points show back up. That way you could use this rubric for multiple different assignments. Maybe some of you want the points to show, others you don't. They just stay there in the background. You haven't lost that work that you did. If I want the points in here and I want my clicking of boxes to equal the score that goes into gradebook, I need to tell Canvas I want to do that. And I do that by choosing the box that says use this rubric for assignment grading. Otherwise, what will happen is I will click the boxes, It will tell me the points, but it won't actually put it into the grade book. I will have to continue to do that. And that's a bummer, right? I'm not sure why someone would choose not to do that if they went to all that work for the points. So just know that if you want it to do that, you've got to click that box that says use the rubric for assignment grading. The last choice that you can do is maybe you like these criteria, but for a particular assignment, you decide that you don't want a rating system. You can come in and choose all write free-form comments when assessing students. You can click on that. And then what you'll get is the criteria, but where the points ratings would have been, you'll just have a big blank box where you could give qualitative feedback on that. So it simplifies the rubric. It gives you more autonomy to give the comments you might want to in a particular class or for a particular purpose. The last choice that you'll see here, there's 5. The don't post outcomes result in the learning mastery gradebook is a sort of third tier, more complicated thing. I wouldn't even worry about that at this point. But if for whatever reason in a future semester you are using an online class and the grading of an assignment is connected to your assessment, your course assessment, like your overall department's working on assessment, you can use these rubrics to assess as well. And then what you would do is simply check the box that says hide score total for assessment results in order to create an assessment file. So you could do that if you wanted to. For our purposes here, we're going to use this rubric for assignment grading. I want to show you one more thing before we go. Up here, let's say that I look this back over, and here's my 35 points for super strong on completion of a peer review, and I'm like, gosh, that's a big jump from 20 to 35. You know, there's a lot of folks that could be doing something that shows some promise, is pretty strong, but not everybody's an A+. I wish I could have a range. You can, right? What you do is you come in under the pencil to edit. Oh, I'm fibbing to you. It's not there. It must be here. Can I not do it after I've built a category? Oh, it's down here. There it is. All the way beneath my description, there's this little tiny box that says range. If I check that, what it means is that all my categories here, I now have the ability to give any score I want between 35 and 20 for super strong, 20 to 0 for meets, so that I don't have to just have a fixed number. I can say anything between 35 and 20 is strong, and then I'm going to decide per assignment what that particular point value is, or from meets to 0, etc. So now I'm going to go ahead and choose Create Rubric. And that rubric is attached right here. Personally, my experience, and I've been teaching online with Canvas for 6 years, is that students do not look at these rubrics before they upload an assignment. So if you go to lots of work to create some really good coaching within this document to help students to understand what would help them to get a super strong grade, my suggestion would be that you either highlight all of this and then do a little bit of reworking and put this into a Word doc or a PDF, or do that same work on a separate Word doc or PDF, just like you were in a face-to-face class, and upload that document along with the assignment to them when you invite them to first start working on the assignment. Give them a paper copy, if you will, a digital paper copy to look at while they're working. They're not going to come to this Dropbox in advance to look at the rubric. It's just not a natural move that they're going to make. They're going to come to this Dropbox when they're ready to put in that assignment. And at that point, it's too late for this to really be of benefit to them. So if you want to use it for that purpose of coaching and guiding, and students do really appreciate that, it's worth it to make sure that you're representing that information in some other way to them when you release the assignment to them.
Nick, really quickly, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but there was a little bit in the chat about just what you're talking about. Michael brought up, you know, where do students see the rubric? And someone else just said, so from what I remember, when I go into student view in my Canvas and I've set up a rubric in an assignment, if I scroll down in student view in that assignment, they can see the rubric sitting there at the bottom.
They can, but
Okay.
they got to scroll down to see it. And so we can model what that looks like, because we're going there in a second anyway. So we can model what that looks like.
Perfect.
Yeah, they can see it, but they got to know to look for it, and they got to remember to go and look for it. And
Right.
I just, like, my experience has been, and my experience as a student has been, that I didn't have time to do that. Like, I was busy trying to get the assignment done. I didn't ever stop to think about going to another location to look at something, right?
Okay.
So for full coverage, get it to them in another way, just in case.
Smart. Yeah. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure I was saying the right thing in the chat.
Totally,
Okay.
totally. So let's grade an assignment, and let's go take a look at what it looks like when they're graded. So again, if I want to go grade an assignment, I'm going to go to grades, which is going to take me to the grade book. So let's go take a look at a different assignment. This is like a baking show. I put stuff in places for you, right? Oh, here's a moment where my grade book looks different than yours, because I have one lonely student, and that student's name is test student, because I'm in a not real class, right? All of your classes, whether you have a sandbox or a live class, have a student called test student. And as Devin was mentioning, there is an ability in your class to look at your class through the eyes of a student. What would a student see? And I'll show you how to do that in just a moment. You can also submit assignments as that fake student in your class so that you can see what that looks like, right? When you submit fake assignments as the fake student in your class, your name is test student. So then you can also fake grade if you want to. I'm not sure why anyone would recreationally fake grade, but I suppose if you really wanted to, you could, right? So let's go take a look at an assignment that I put in there so you can see what the rubric looks like. We're gonna go to an assignment called assignment 1. So let me just find that. Here it is, assignment 1. So when I find something and I wanna grade it, I'm gonna look for the title of that assignment. If a student has submitted to that assignment, I will know because there's an icon that shows that something is there, right? If I've already graded, I'll know because the score is in place. And if I've created a graded activity, but a student has not yet submitted, I'm simply going to see a dash, right? So in this case, I know there's something waiting for me. It's ready for me to grade. Let's go in there. In order to do that, I'm going to click on the icon. And so I could just put a score in here, but I haven't looked at it yet, so that doesn't seem like a good idea. Instead, I'm going to come over to this box with an arrow on the right, and I'm going to click on it, and that's going to open up this bar on the right that gives me a little bit more information. The student's name, the assignment name, and I could put in a grade again right here or note something about that it's late or it's missing or leave some comments, but I really want to see that assignment before I give feedback. So in order to do that, I'm going to click into this spot that says Speed Grader. Click into Speed Grader, and that's when I'll have the opportunity to see the assignment. So in this case, it was a file upload, right? So here's the file. I can see it here. And then if I'm getting ready to grade, what I notice on the right is the date when it was submitted, the name of the file, should I want to download it, a place for me to give a score, a place for me to give a comment, a place for me to upload, 2 additional ways for me to give comments and feedback, which, by the way, I do a session on giving feedback in Canvas that walks all through the awesomeness of other ways that you could give feedback if you don't want to type. So it's a great one to jump into if you want to kind of expand what your options are for giving feedback. And then right here, I've got this button that says View Rubric. So if I click on that, the rubric opens. You thought you were all done with the squinting when you made the rubric. Sadly, no, there's still a lot of squinting that happens. You can adjust your screen with this gray bar in between the width of the assignment and the width of the rubric. It's an imperfect system, but you can drag it over, and then your assignment will be really little, but your rubric will be really big, or you can kind of do a halfsies, halfsies. Whatever makes sense for you. You can move it back and forth. But this is where I can take action on that assignment. So let's say that I feel like this had lots of good support in it. I'm going to click 20 points. Let's say that I feel like there was some evidence, but it needs some strengthening. They had some analysis, enough to get meets. There was some coherence, but not enough. It needs some strengthening. There's a solid works cited page. There's some good formatting. It meets my requirements in terms of clarity, and there's a great reflection letter with it. For each of those areas, I'm simply clicking a box. And while I'm clicking those boxes, Canvas is adding up those scores by the total. So then once I'm done, Canvas tells me that it's 92 points out of 115. If I want to, this is a moment where I can come in and I can type more feedback. But I can also just choose save right here. I've got this. If I choose submit, everything goes in. Oh, look, apparently when I put this rubric together, I put it together so that I got my points, but I didn't check the box that said use this for assignment grading. So this is one of those moments where it tells me there's 92 and I hit submit, but because I didn't check that box, nothing has happened for the total grade. So I've got to come up here and make that extra step of putting 92 in here. I'm going to choose submit. That's interesting. Got a wacky assignment going on here. It's all good. Here we go. So that's how you would use the rubric. You might notice that there's some color differences here. Canvas has added these color differences where if something is done well, it gets green. If something is done okay, it's in a mid-range score. It gets like an orange. And then if they had something that was really not working well, it's critically low, they get a red. So it's kind of like a stoplight that's color-coded as well. So that's how you would use a rubric. And then again, if it was set to auto score, that would populate here. If not, you can add that score. Let's take a look at how you would see this from a student view. And then I can take questions as well as showing you how to import a rubric. So let's go back just to our overall course. I'm going to come down here into modules. If I want to set myself to student view, the way that I do that is I come down on my left all the way down in my navigation tabs to the one that says settings. I click on it. And then over on the right, my first choice under share to commons is student view. So if I click on student view, I get this pink box that comes all the way around my screen. And that's how I know I'm seeing this from the student's perspective. Notice I just graded that assignment. So now my student has a number 1 here to tell them you have a new graded assignment. So I can come into grades. And then I'm going to see all the assignments that are here. And then I can see the assignment. Let me find my assignment 1. Where is it? Here it is, assignment 1. I think the blue dot tells me that I've not looked at that yet. So then I can see it here. Over on the right, I'll see the total score that I received. I'll see that this, what looks like chat boxes, which means that my instructor put in a comment, and I can click on that to see that comment. And then there's a little box that looks like a clipboard. And if I click on that, I can see the rubric. And then I'll see what the rubrics feedback was, and I can look all the way through. I can also come up to the assignment itself and click on it. And if I click on the assignment, it makes my life easier. That's where I'll be able to see an option to show the rubric over here on the right, any comments my instructor made. And I can also click into the assignment to see my assignment, and I can click on the right here under view feedback if my instructor gave me any feedback on the assignment itself. So that's how I would see all of these moves as a student. If I want to leave student view, I simply choose on the right to leave student view. The purple goes away and I know I'm back to my design space as the instructor. All right, other than showing, I want to hold a placeholder for showing you how to import a rubric. What other questions do you have at this time that I can help with?
Yeah, so great job, Nick. I thought it was I always learn something new, and I've been using rubrics too. So one question was the connection between using rubrics and using Turnitin.com
Okay.
on Canvas. So the question was, you know, she uses it on Canvas, but she has difficult making a rubric. Now, do you make the rubric in Canvas or in Turnitin?
Do you know, Devin? Because I do not use Turnitin.
We don't, I was just saying, we don't have Turnitin in our district yet. They're working on it on a couple different campuses. So, you know, Hortensia, you're the one asking this question. I would recommend getting in touch with your distance ed coordinator, and they would probably be able to help you.
Turnitin adds additional, it's that shared space of control between the outside program and Canvas, and I do think that makes things a bit more challenging, but your distance ed coordinator should know how those two things are talking to each other. Yeah.
Okay, great. The other question, Nick, was, which I believe the answer is yes, can you add a rubric after the students have started submitting the assignment?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. You can even add it after you've started grading assignments if you want to, but then you would have to go back and add a rubric. You'd have to go back and do the rubric for the students who you'd already graded, because they wouldn't have they just have an empty rubric with nothing in it if you put in their score. Let me show you what it looks like to add a rubric to a discussion forum, because when you're adding it to an assignment, you just, it's right at the bottom there where it says plus rubric. The discussion forums are a little weird. When you build a discussion and you make a new discussion, it isn't as intuitive where to find the rubric. So you put in your title for your discussion, your prompt for your discussion. Hopefully you will make real words versus fake words, as I'm doing. You set up whatever controls you want on your discussion, and you put in graded, right? And then you come down and you hit save. If you were making an assignment, right, a Dropbox or a text box like the one we modeled, right here on this weird third space, not the editing space, but this other screen, there would be this button right here. This is plus rubric. I don't know why it isn't there in discussion forums, but I have since learned that that doesn't mean you can't add a rubric. You just have to come up to this set of 3 buttons on the right, 3 dots, choose it. You get a drop-down menu and it says add rubric, ta-da! And then it comes in as a pop-out. My hunch is this was patched in later, because it functions differently. It's this weird pop-out versus the one where you hit a plus. So it feels like maybe there was a time when discussion forums weren't an option and now they are, who knows? But I'm so glad they are, because it's wonderful to be able to use a rubric with a discussion forum. What other questions can I answer? Oh, you're muted, whoops.
Sorry, yep, I noticed. The last one I have here is from my friend Michael. He and I have been on these now since Friday together. Where does the student submit their paper within the assignment? So he's saying I presently have my students go to Turnitin.com.
Oh, so if you go to Turnitin.com, they have their own rigmarole for how you submit. If you do not have Turnitin.com set up, when the student goes to the assignment, they will be prompted. If it's a Dropbox, they'll be prompted to submit the assignment. There'll be a blue box up on the right that says submit assignment. They'll click on that box and it will open up a box for them to be able to you know, where it says browse, and you click on it, and then it triggers them to look on their desktop or their laptop or whatever it is that might have files attached, and then they can attach a file right there. So it's the hallway between Turnitin and Canvas that makes that system look different. Here they would just upload, they'll just upload, and I can show you where that is. So
the other question we had too, while you're toggling about, is the view feedback that you were doing just recently. Is that view feedback for comments made directly into an assignment only, or is it for all feedback?
Great question. So you can, as an instructor, you can only give like margin comments on a file that is uploaded. You cannot come into a discussion forum and like add comment bubbles on people's discussion in a discussion forum. It's only if they've uploaded a file. So you have to design the right type of graded activity where students are uploading, and then you can give that marginal comments or kind of comment bubbles, and then students would be able to see those. So it starts by what you design, and then you can walk students to see that if you use those tools. In the Canvas feedback session that I do, we walk through how to use those annotation tools and how to set up an assignment so that you can get them. I'm going to model one more thing for you on this screen, and then we'll look at how you could upload an assignment. On this screen, if I'm going to add a rubric, right, and this works the same whether it's a discussion forum, a text box, or a file upload. If I choose add a rubric, right, I could start to build a rubric, but over on the right, you're going to see this magnifying glass and these magic words that say find a rubric. And if I click on that, Canvas is going to show me every class I've ever taught that I still have access to. And if I click on that class, it will then show me every rubric I built in that class. It doesn't matter the semester. It's whatever, you know, depending on my district that I still have access to. So then I can come in, choose a rubric, preview it here. And if I'm like, yeah, that's going to work with a little bit of editing, this would be perfect. I scroll to the bottom and I say, use this rubric. Ta-da! Now I don't have to build it from scratch. So my personal opinion is, if you find a rubric that's close enough in the amount of criteria and ratings to fit what you need, import it, pull it over from another assignment, pull it over from another class, and then you can come up with the pencil and edit it however you need. It's easier than building from scratch. So once you've done a few, you're in a much better situation. All right.
Pam,
oh, go ahead. Nope, you go.
Pam asked a question a while back, and I went just to go find it. The question was, are you aware of any math instructors using Canvas rubrics?
I don't know that I know any, but that's only because I haven't asked. If I was in my face-to-face hallway back in the world where we were on our campuses, I was actually in the math hallway. They let me interlope. And I had pretty amazing math colleagues. My assumption is they do use them, that there's a way to use, especially the range function might be great. If you're demonstrating, if students are being asked to demonstrate or show their work, then that range function might be great because you could drill down as an instructor, like how much have they solved the problem, right? And that range would allow you to create increments within the rubric if you wanted to. Yeah.
I was thinking that too, Nick. I was also thinking about Canvas Commons, everybody. And there's a lot of things in Canvas Commons, which I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but if you're looking for rubrics and you haven't found one that you like, or you want to search further, there's a ton of rubrics already in Canvas Commons that you can look at for your discipline.
And if you're wondering where Canvas Commons is, on your home page, if you come over to the right, you can go to Import from Commons, and that'll give you this opportunity to go and look and see what's there by simply searching, and then you can start to see what's in there.
Perfect.
And I'm imagining that many, many new things are being added there every moment right now as folks are working in this environment. So last, before you exit, I just wanted to share a couple more resources with you that Devin's going to put into the chat. So the first is a link to our 3CSN page, which includes our upcoming schedule and links to be able to continue to join us in our virtual learning world. We really appreciate you being here. We learn from you, and we continue to develop this series in order to support you. So please stay with us. We really, really appreciate having you here. The second link is to our Padlet, which is this community-sourced huge resource of great ideas that you can add to, so it is truly a reflection of our collective expertise and knowledge. And the last is our FAQs, which is this internally created set of how-tos that bubbled up from sessions like this that we have curated in order to be like a second step. If your questions didn't get answered today or you find that you have more of them, that's a great place to go and visit to continue to help you as you work. We're so grateful to have you here. We really appreciate you taking the time to be with us. We know how busy you are right now, and we hope you'll continue to learn with us. Thank you so much, and have a fantastic Wednesday.
Yes. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a beautiful day. Yay.